rolled my shoulders trying to get comfortable, my hands still painfully handcuffed behind me. A familiar voice called out to me.
Did they cut your hair?
I did not want to speak to him.
You were supposed to get me out of prison, not get yourself arrested.
Well, I needed to see what I was dealing with up close.
Sarcasm won't help you now.
Makes me feel better.
Wanna know what I think? I think your king orchestrated his own attempted murder so that he could have a reason to go to war. You got in the way. You shut up or I'll shut you up. No talking to other prisoners. You got that?
I stood up and made my way to the steel door, where a tiny barred window let me peer into the hallway. I couldn't see Felix, but I suspected he was close by. I leaned my forehead against the cool steel. It's hopeless.
Stand back.
I backed away from the door and it swung open. In the doorway stood Queen Kiva. She looked down at me with pity. I didn't.
Remove her handcuffs. Yes, Your Majesty, of course.
The guard released my pinned wrists. The queen placed an envelope in my hands.
Read it after I've left. Tonight your dinner will be broth. I'll make sure it's hot.
The queen left. No offer of help, no promise of a trial, not even a smile. I flicked the envelope open and saw a single strand of gold hair. My hair. What? I checked the envelope again. No letter, just the hair. Exhaustion fogged my brain. Was she suggesting that I brew the hair in the broth and use it to dreamwalk? But then what? I'd been stuck in tight circles around the cell, trying to wrap my mind around what I was supposed to do. The queen was trying to help me. Is there someone who can get me out of this mess? As soon as I thought it, my mind jumped to two people. Alasdair the cat and Theo, my best friend. I assumed neither of them knew I was here. If I can contact them through dreams, perhaps they can get me out. It was just a slight glimmer of hope, but it was the only one I had. When my measly meal was brought to me, I set to work. I usually found the process of making dream tea therapeutic, but tonight I just felt anxious. I went to push my hair over my shoulder and my hand met with empty space. For a moment, I'd forgotten my hair had been chopped. It's never been this short before. Alasdair had said if I ever needed his help, I should just ask. But somehow I don't think helping me out of prison is what he had in mind. While his human self is too far from the castle for me to dreamwalk, I'm positive that I can contact him by delving into his feline familiar's dream. I've never walked the dreams of a non-human before, but I don't have a whole lot of choice right now. Hopefully this works. Dusty's dream is hazy and entirely in shades of grey. The cat is sitting in the sun, completely oblivious to my presence. I watched him for a moment, trying to decide how to proceed. Alasdair obviously isn't here. However, overlapping the cat's consciousness, I sense the complicated swirling emotions of a human. A part of Alasdair is constantly linked to this cat. I picked up the cat and, while feeling foolish, proceeded to tell him the events of the last 24 hours. Help me, Alasdair. The cat twisted and squirmed out of my grip. I awoke wondering if I even got through to Alasdair. Would he realize it was really me? I sighed. Fuck. I waited the following day for any sign of help. I tried not to think about it too much. I'd done what I could, and it'll either work or it won't. I'd been dreaming when I woke up abruptly. My dream had featured a cat wearing an overly tight collar, I think. Was it suffocating? I tried to shake the dream out of my head. Through the darkness of the dunk dungeons floated a light tinkling sound. I nearly jumped out of my skin when a dark shadow edged its way between the bars of my cell. Dusty's bright blue eyes shone out through the gloom. In his mouth glinted the unmistakable shape of an oversized set of keys. Oh boy, am I glad to see you.
I should expect so. Let's get a move on. The guard just so happens to be fast asleep. Funny what a little sleeping powder in the evening meal will do to a man.
Yeah, funny that. Wonder how that happened.
Not a clue. I'm just a gentle pussycat. Take his cloak.
I eased the cloak from the sleeping guard. It was nothing fancy, which made it perfect for a daring escape in the middle of the night. This is kind of exciting. I received a sharp meow through the darkness in response.
Hold off on your celebrations until we actually get out of here.
Whoa, wait a moment. I need to say Felix. Alasdair hissed.
Felix?
The other alchemist. He's locked down here too. The smoky grey cat stared at me in alarm.
Seriously?
Yeah, he's in here. He's kind of an asshole with questionable morals, but he promised me to tell me everything he knows if I get him out of here. Alasdair seemed to struggle internally for a second. The curiosity eventually won over whatever doubts he had about this affair. I doubled back to the cell positioned opposite to mine. Felix was already awake and waiting for me. As I tried the keys one at a time, I asked, "How come you didn't say anything? I almost left without you."
I wasn't about to beg. It was up to you if you wanted to help me or not.
It's not that I want to, it's a scripted event. But you are entertaining, so it's okay. Finally, one of the keys turned. I felt a slight twinge of apprehension as I held the cell door open for Felix. Like I'd released the tiger from the cage. Could I trust Felix? Whose side was he really on? But no, trust is earned. So, we're taking the wild card with us. If he's insane or dangerous, he should have been shaved. Nice haircut, by the way. Alasdair led us lower and lower into the depths of the castle. We followed him through the passageways and then came out to the moat. A tied-up rowboat bobbed in the feeble current.
I take it that's our escape plan? Correct. Just raise the portcullis and we'll be on our way. Where do the waters lead? Into town. And then what? You're on edge. Relax. Of course I'm on edge. What did you expect? Felix. No need to swear. Get in, both of you. Or would you like to risk being caught and getting back to your charming selves?
So charming? Wait a second, so there is a swear word, Felix, in your language, and your name is Felix? It's a beautiful name. When I'd settled into the rowboat, the kitty pounced onto my shoulders and got comfortable inside the scoop of my hood. What the...
You should relax too. This way I can talk in your ear without arousing the suspicions. You know, in case we meet anyone.
You don't think it'll be weird to have a cat in my hood? Fine. No neck licking, though. What? Okay, yeah, fine. No neck licking, though.
I wouldn't dream of it.
He waved a fluffy tail under my nose. Stop moving, it tickles.
Better get used to it.
Felix untied the boat and pulled it closer for easier boarding. Take the oars. Let Felix row first. Well, I have something important to think about. Strategize, self-reflect. So if you don't mind, could you please row first? Without comment, Felix picked up the oars and used one to ease us out into the middle of the waterway. Absent-mindedly, I gently stroked a hand through Alistair's fur. As we peeled away from the guts of the castle, I reflected on the strange little party we'd formed. 2 Dream Alchemists and a talking cat. None of us really knows one another. We're virtual strangers, relying on each other for survival. Well, except for Alistair. He doesn't really need us, it's that we need him. I assumed we were heading to Alistair's tower, the one he pointed out to me, just the other day? It was so surreal. Living in the castle felt like a world away. I wondered how Theo was doing, if he even knew what had happened to me. I'll write him a letter and let him know I'm safe as soon as I can. Felix's oar scraped against something on the bottom of the moat. Theo told me there were alligators in these waters.
Theo? The best friend.
Alistair's fluffy ears perked up at this information.
You have a best friend, but you asked me for help?
Well, he's busy. He has plans of his own. He wants to go in the unknown direction. What could I say? I asked for your help because I find you intriguing. I'd like to get to know you better. No way was I admitting this to his smug little kitty face. What? Why not? It's not very personal. He's literally a Pokemon. And it's always been a dream. I think it would have been more concerning if you weren't curious about this. Alistair saved me from an awkward explanation.
There are no alligators in the moat.
We bobbed along, the darkness our cover, as the moat merged into a stream flowing towards the nearby town.
We shouldn't stay in town. No, that would be unwise. The town will be crawling with castle guards at sunrise. My tower lies to the east, about a day's walk. You'll both be safe there. What kind of person lives in the tower? What is it that you're suggesting?
There was something weighted in the interactions between Alistair and Felix. Was it just hidden tensions between 2 men who didn't know each other? Or something deeper?
I'm not suggesting anything.
Felix turned away, the shadows hiding his expression. Alistair twitched a whisker. Cold out. Can you feel it, Felix? You've been challenged and you chickened out. Your sneaky comments look like cowardice now, which they are. We rowed the boat for as long as we could. along the stream, through the town's canals, under bridges and through tunnels. To our good fortune, there were no witnesses to our passage. On the outskirts of town, the river began to flow west, the sun our companion. We disembarked, preparing to spend the remaining daylight walking. I felt my stomach grumble.
Are you just going to ignore your empty stomach?
Yes.
No. Wait here.
Okay. What are you gonna do? I mean, you are a very resourceful non-wizard. You arranged the boat in the moat and roofied the guard, all while being a cat. So, you are a magic user of some sort, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you're a wizard. I would never assume that. It's ignorant, or even worse. Anyway, go ahead, do your magic if you wish. The cat pounced from my shoulder, disappearing into the dense shrubbery.
Really? We need to get moving. We're just sitting ducks here. Might as well hold my hands behind my back in preparation for the inevitable handcuffs.
I felt the same. I was getting anxious sitting here on the banks of the stream as the daylight crept over the horizon.
You trust the cat?
Yes, I do. So please stick with us. We'll get through it together. Also, we had a deal, remember? You promised me to tell me everything you know, so I have questions for you. You can't leave just yet. Felix gave a short nod. Alasdair came back with a baguette wedged between his teeth, its length extending on each side of his body. It was a comical sight, but I was too grateful to say anything. I tore the roll in half and offered half to Felix. For all his earlier complaints, he eagerly wolfed it down. I tore a chunk of my half and scoffed it down, showering crumbs all over my lap. The cat sat and condemned our actions with a superior expression. Stop it.
Stop what?
Looking at us like we're animals.
I'm a cat. I look at everyone like this.
Rub breadcrumbs through his fur. Why would we do this? This is just mean. Offer him some food. He wrinkled his nose.
No, thank you. I'll catch a mouse or something later.
Is it poisoned? It's not like anyone affected my judgment or anything, but do you by any chance collect Dream Alchemists in your basement? Don't get me wrong, I don't think you do, but do you? You'd prefer a mouse to bread.
In this form, yeah. I have no interest in eating bread as a cat.
Felix paid not a lick of attention to either of us, eating like he hadn't eaten properly in months, which now that I think about it, he probably hadn't. Alasdair patiently waited for us to finish before he spoke again.
Now, before we continue any further, I think a conversation needs to be had.
Alasdair turned his sharp eyes to Felix.
I understand you have a debt to pay to Nova in exchange for your freedom. Yes, I owe her information. Do you want to tell her now and be on your way?
Felix froze, his face turning to me, searching mine. Am I ready to part ways with Felix? No, you guys have some chemistry going. If anyone was to leave, it should be me, but I don't want to. I want to watch. Alasdair smiled.
Very wise, Nova.
As the sun rolled across the sky, we hiked on. I zoned out for most of it, changing one foot in front of the other, only to repeat the movement on the other side. Alasdair's black tower grew as we neared, seeming to rise out of the earth.
The locals call my tower the vampire.
I could see why. The tower stood tall, dark and forbidding, towering over us, watching our approach. While Alistair preferred to spend the journey curled up in my hood, Felix and I slogged on. We were exhausted and anxious, and so we kept our thoughts to ourselves. But there wasn't much to say anyway. It was nearing evening once again when we arrived at the foot of the tower. The tower appeared to be constructed with a type of black granite, and upon closer inspection, I saw it was in a serious state of decay. Gnarly vines had taken root over the much of the exterior stone, while deep cracks snaked between the bricks. Worryingly, it leaned ever so slightly to the right. Alistair nodded at a nearby flower pot.
There is a spare key under here. How original. Now it is time for me to take my leave.
Is your human self inside?
Yes, I am sleeping in an armchair in the study. Please do not enter. I need to be left alone. I'll return Dusty back to the castle. I want to keep an eye on the council, and besides, it's kind of suspicious for all of us to disappear at the same time. Once I have made the journey, I'll leave the cat, and my human self will wake. Likely tomorrow morning. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Good. Both of you should be safe in my tower. The townsfolk, and even the patrols to an extent, are too scared to come near it. Help yourselves to the food in my kitchen. My bedroom is at the top of the tower. Nova, you may sleep there. Felix, you may have the guest bedroom on the floor below.
Alistair outstretched a soft paw for me to shake. I pressed his little toe beans with pleasure. He extended the same gesture to Felix, who also shook, looking relieved to part ways for a short while.
Until tomorrow.
Alistair darted off into the dusk. We opened the door and stepped into the ground level of the tower. While the exterior of the tower was shabby at best, the interior was in extreme contrast. It was grand. Each level was its own large room, ringed by a spiral staircase that coiled around the walls leading upwards, much like a lighthouse. I wandered around the foyer, marveling at the grandeur. The castle, while stately, lacked the character of this tower. I hung up my cloak and followed Felix up the levels of the tower. It was immediately obvious that Alistair was somewhat of a hoarder. Upon every surface there was clutter: books, used mugs, papers, candles, clothes. At the study, I let Felix wander ahead. The door was slightly ajar. Oh no. I don't like it. So, me personally, I faint sometimes. And it brings up some kind of existential dread when it happens. The fact that my body just stays unattended, left to the mercy of strangers. Even if it's just for a couple of minutes, not knowing what's happening is unsettling. In some situations, a couple of minutes can be really dangerous. If I was Alistair, who stays unconscious for hours, I would absolutely hate it if Nova or Felix came anywhere near my body. Give him some space. We shook his paw on this. Here's what I think would be okay to do. To take a sneak peek of the room, just in case there's something very ominous about it. But that's not an option. We're gonna go and mess with the unconscious person, right? I dislike this a lot. It's almost as bad as bullying the cat. On the other hand, maybe this choice is more meaningful than I think it is. Maybe if you choose to go in, that makes you Team Felix all the way, no backing off. You don't respect privacy? He doesn't respect privacy. Buckle up, you stuck with him practicing this bullshit on you. And the same with breadcrumbs. I think this is it. Poetic justice. I followed Felix up the curved stairs. Above the study sat the bathroom, then the guest room, and topped by that was Alasdair's bedroom. Despite there being a guest room, it was obvious that this tower was intended to be lived in by a single person. If I were to be sleeping in Alasdair's bedroom, I'd have to pass through Felix's bedroom to get to the kitchen, or if someone was in the bathtub, I'd see them as I used the stairs. It seemed like a major design flaw not to shut the staircase off from each room.
Are you tired? Hungry?
Both.
Alright, let's go back to the kitchen. I'll whip us up something.
Really? Are you okay? Alasdair's kitchen was a striking gold and green affair. The man has style, I'll give him that. Felix had shrugged off his coat and now moved around the kitchen like he owned the joint, pulling out ham and slicing bread.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee? He placed our drinks on the table along with a platter of bread, cheese, and meat. Once we'd devoured a substantial amount of the food, Felix turned his green eyes on me. Tucking a length of hair behind his ear, he leaned forward on his forearms.
Are you ready to talk? About being an alchemist? About where you come from? About...
He turned his hands palms up.
Whatever you want, basically. You ask, and I'll share everything I know.
Well, you're in a good mood. Should we wait for Alasdair? Nah, I think we should take advantage of his good mood right now. Really? You will tell me anything. Okay, where should we start? I don't know why it was funny. We'll go with the most boring one.
You tell me. What's your most pressing question?
Who killed the ambassador?
I don't know. It wasn't me, if that's what you're asking.
Felix took a slow sip of his coffee, maintaining eye contact as he did.
We were in that dream together right up until the end. We can vouch for each other, but at this point, our innocence means fuck all in the eyes of the crown.
And if you had to guess?
The king? He's the one with the motive for war. You'll never prove that though, so give up on that for now.
Is that all on Ambassador? I have more questions. Why were you in the bar when I joined his dream the second time? How long did you stay in his mind? I mean, the stamina, right? Can you kill someone in their dreams? The ambassador clearly was killed with a knife, and Astrid was playing dumb, unless she is dumb, which is easy to believe, considering the fact that Felix used his hair while being in prison. But anyway, it's not about the ambassador's death. I want to know the potential level of Dreamwalker's control. Did you walk the dreams of other people in the castle? What did you learn? Come to think about it, I wonder what Felix's perspective on all those events is. Here's what I imagine happened. He had the usual day in his charming cell when Sam Fernsby arrived. Felix then went into his dream right away, because obviously it's an opportunity. Maybe they'll develop an escape plan together, or maybe there's something helpful in Sam's history. So, while in Sam's dream, Felix notices that Nova is trying to connect and goes into the stealth mode. He witnesses their encounter, and after Nova leaves the interrogation room, Felix gets the dream back to the bar and stays in it for hours until Nova arrives for the second time. Question: what did Felix do for hours in Sam's dream? If I was Felix, I would go and explore Sam's memories to the best of my ability. Where does he come from? Who is his master? Who helped him to get the audience with the queen? Pretty much everything I could find. Those are recent events. They should be on the surface of Sam's mind. Because if Felix wanted Nova's help, that information would have been the best leverage. And even if Nova didn't return, this information could be useful anyway. So, come on, Felix, stop playing the fool. You don't know who killed him? Fine. That's very possible, but what did you learn about Sam while you stayed in his dream? There is no way you just wasted that time. But I can't ask any of that, so let's go to the next question. Why'd the king turn on me?
I had nothing to do with that. Sounds like good old backstabbing to me.
Oh, how convenient. He was my father.
Some people should never be parents. He sounds like one of them.
And what was your father like? Whatever Felix expected me to say, it wasn't that.
I didn't really know him, to be honest with you.
He fell silent for a moment. I joined him in it.
Mom says I'm just like him, whatever that means.
Well, the king is not my real father.
I know.
We fell quiet again. I have another question. Who sent the toxic flower to the royal family? When I first met the ambassador, the slave, Fernsby, you brought to my attention that he had a tattoo on his neck. It looked like the letter L. Felix looked puzzled.
I don't know what that means.
What? Why did you show it to me as a proof that he was a slave then?
I needed to convince you, so I improvised.
Okay, so we actually don't know if Sam was a slave or not. And our next question is, why are we alchemists? Where do we come from?
In Kaidoa, we have many legends around alchemists. Some say those that are born to walk are destined to change the world, that we're chosen. Scientists say that we have a genetic mutation.
And what do you think?
A mutation. We're not special. Not really.
A mutation? Yeah, it's better than destiny.
I agree. It's up to you what path you choose and how you use your talents.
Huh. Interesting. And how are you using your talents? Are you using them to commit crimes by any chance?
Let's say we move on. Any more questions?
Okay, moving on. How come I was never told about your existence?
I'd say you were only told what they wanted you to know.
My immediate reaction was to deny.
The king, and almost certainly the queen, knew I was in those cells. And they also knew you'd be interested in meeting a fellow alchemist. And yet, they chose to keep that information from you. If you want my advice, just move on from what happened and look to the future. For better or worse, this is your life now.
I sighed. Can we talk about something else? Well, since you're willing to answer, I have to ask. Why were you in prison? What did you do?
Oh yeah, that. I attempted to intercept communications between the king and his like-minded loonies. They found out and I got arrested. The communications in question were specifically related to war contracts. And this happened 6 months ago. If that's not a solid proof that the king has long been planning a war, then I don't know what is.
I quietly absorbed the information. If what he said was true, then the king may have been planning a war for months, if not years.
I'm also the Imperial Prince of Kaidoe, which likely played a part.
You're... what?
I haven't been home in a while now. I'd been working with a rebel group in Sovi. We went undercover and were trying to stall or prevent the war with guerrilla tactics. I got caught, they recognized me, and locked me up.
You're the Imperial Prince?
I see you've heard of me.
I'd heard of the royal family of Kaidoe. The Empress Lilu ruled the country now. The emperor and their eldest son reportedly died during the war that I ran from as a child. I'd heard the younger prince was now in line for the throne. Yeah, that's right. Prince Felix.
The king knew exactly who I was. My arrest wasn't made public so as not to inflame any pro-Kaidoe sympathizers. I don't know what he planned to do with me. Maybe use me as bait or a bartering chip, or just quietly execute me.
Felix discussing his possible death with an offhand casualness caused me quiet discomfort. How long?
In the cells? Weeks? Months? How should I know? It's not like I had a calendar nailed into the stone wall.
You already said it was 6 months ago. And by the way, you don't need a calendar to know how much time passed. You need 2 dates. Today, and the last one you remember before the arrest. Your hair.
Oh, they chopped it off too, just like yours. Our hair grows unusually fast though. You'll see.
I nodded and Felix began to clear the remnants of our meal. I helped carry the dishes to the sink while stifling the yawn. Leaning against the counter, I turned to Felix. What now?
Right now? Sleep.
No, I mean, are you leaving?
Not right now, but soon. I have to track down some associates first.
Like who? He crossed his arms.
Not people you know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to pry.
Yes, you did. Our agreement to exchange information didn't involve my personal life.
Personal life? Wait, you think I was trying to grasp whether you have a romantic partner or not? I wasn't, don't worry about it. But, wouldn't it be a compliment if I was? Whatever, I'm going to bed. What happened? You were kinda before. Because talking about ourselves is what friends do. Or have you not had friends before? Like, what about your associates?
And we're friends now, are we?
Yes, friends and allies.
That's a rather inflated view of our acquaintance.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, so I suggest you deal with it. I left the kitchen without waiting for a response. Okay, here's what I think about Felix. I think that he's completely nuts. With something like a delusion of grandeur or megalomania. I suspect that excessive dream walking might have an effect on cognitive functions too, like drugs. But let's assume for now that he's telling the truth and he is the Prince of Kaidoe. Not only he's a prince, next in line for the throne, he's also a very rare type of person. A dream alchemist whose hair worth a fortune. King Eric puts Felix in prison and then acts like he doesn't even exist. Nobody comes into his cell to negotiate, not even at the very least to cut his hair. Well, they did cut it when he arrived, but ever since that, it's like nobody has seen him. He's not a threat. He's not an asset. He's not a bargaining chip. He matters so little that he doesn't deserve anyone's attention. And if I had to guess, I'd say that this was the king's plan. He wanted to break Felix down and make him feel utterly inconsequential. The king went so far with it that when Alasdair said there was someone else in Sam's dream, he was like, No, can't think of anyone. Maybe that's why Felix is so desperate to assert dominance, to prove that he does have power. But even so, Felix for sure is not a good person, and he'll be a horrible monarch. If your whole style is built around trying to humiliate your opponents to make yourself feel bigger, I have very little hope for you. But we'll see, I guess. Friendship was of course an overkill, but it was such a funny turn of conversation I couldn't resist. And he bought it. Amazing. I was a little out of breath by the time I'd climbed to the top of the tower. When I entered Alasdair's room, it felt like I was intruding. I was wandering around the room, trying to get familiar with it. There were very few personal items here. It felt kind of like a hotel room. It wasn't that the room was dusty, but it was easy to see that Alasdair hasn't spent much time up here. Realizing how tired I am, I sunk into the soft mattress and spread my arms out wide. The room had an angular glass ceiling through which I could see the arc of the Milky Way dissecting the night sky. I felt small. I missed my old bedroom. I missed the castle and the queen and my job. I missed Theo. I realized I felt guilty over leaving without saying goodbye to Theo, and vowed to write him a letter in the morning. Did I make the right call asking for Alasdair's help? Or am I just going to be stuck in this tower for the rest of my days, unable to leave for fear of getting caught? And what about Felix? He appeared impatient to leave as soon as possible, but where to? I had no idea. He's so secretive and mistrustful. I doubt he'd tell me what he was up to, let alone wish to work together. Feeling a creeping anxiety taking over, I shook the thoughts from my head. I didn't want to spend the night unable to sleep and continually turning over the same questions. I crawled under the sheets and let the fatigue I'd been fighting all evening take over.